da che singanzo Gesù Iran che vuole Gesù Iran c'è di corsiero c'è da che vuole Gesù Iran ci due che va che va ci ma da mi go va tu ji che va ne ci su ci lo so ba da ne tarba da 탐지 김에 go va to bi che yu che va da me va to bi che 동에 다음에 미비게다 라시에 신에다 라동 라소바 데네 파진 주게 냠네 기위리 타바 탐지 김에 기위리 저 유스네 바다 개와치말 하다 미고바도 비 개와 차산리아 도스치네 삼다제 배야고레 삼비기 지수 일하셔야다 랑기 데네 개와사요나 랑기 개와를 지수 일하셔야 현이 사베기 개와들 현이 개와 주바들 지수 일하셔야 지수 일하셔 나 데네기 나 하다 미고 봐도 유 규제를 되는 제보 개와치만 하다 미고 봐도 된데래 대기윤이 대기들이야 지수 일하지야 탈비고 탈비 남냠수인 렘발에 되는 제보 탈바토비 탈바들이야 지수 일하지야 데네 탐제 계산요고 봐도 유 파진 장주심 요군내라데 파진 주게 냠는 제발에 되는 산요고 봐도 제보 산요고 봐도 발에 되라야 지수 일하지 야보레스 지수 일하지네 네 랑기네 디나지 냠는 제토 tuba chigi sembeketa dimba jayata molam jayati jahore asete kisinga jesu irangor to shivara.
Good evening. So last week we concluded looking at the presentation in the Seven Limb Prayer on rejoicing. We looked at how one rejoices both in terms of causes and effects. So in terms of causes, one rejoices in the causes, in particular that of ethical restraint, that lead to the result of a good rebirth, a rebirth as a human or God. One also rejoices in the causes that lead to the attainment of liberation. So those are the same causes that lead to a good rebirth, with those in addition being single points of concentration and the wisdom realizing emptiness. So there one rejoices in the beings who, in those causes that are being accumulated that will lead to liberation, as well as to the attainment of liberation as well. And then thirdly, one rejoices in the causes that lead to enlightenment. So in addition to the causes already mentioned, when accumulated with appropriate motivation, one also rejoices in bodhicitta. And thereby rejoicing in the causes, one also results in the result, enlightenment, all those who have attained the exalted state of Buddhahood. So therefore, in terms of excellent rebirths, liberation and enlightenment, those are results, and one rejoices in those three results as well as their respective causes. And then finally, the outcome of rejoicing is setting the firm determination that I myself will achieve all those results through accumulating the appropriate causes, and expressing prayer or making prayer as well for that to come about. Tonight we'll look at the next two of the seven limbs, that requesting for the wheel of Dharma to continue to be turned, as well as requesting for our teachers to remain.
Chonam kunji sanje la tamo jeti sovani simjin dungal mundom la chigyu jime bardo solos dada nyangale me kas chigyu holo koro suwa de badire.
The fifth verse then, requesting with folded hands the Buddhas in all directions, please light the lamp of Dharma for confused beings suffering in darkness. So this then is requesting for the wheel of Dharma to be turned.
Chonam kunye sanje la si de chigyu holo koro jesu suwa de se yu da sanje de yongwe songorwa da cho tam je cho namba cho shar ji shar cho da lo cho sa da de nigi ji cho shi da ane dian wo da cham ge sa da cho shi cham shi ge la so ba da de nigi da cho ga wa na shu yu bai na ya so da shu yu ga sang ge cha sa ji ko de cho nam tam je cho nam ba so na ne da shu yu bi ge sang ge cho nam kun ye sang ge la se so wa de yu di de cho tam je nam ba tam je de shu di ge sang ge cha sa ya ji or the so self-tapche, and delia, and a Chukolo Korochi, Shugubaza, Chanagunya, Sanyela, said that Chukolo Korochi, so I say you, Sanye department, so at Chagore.
The first line in Tibetan is our second line, and this is to whom the request is made. So the request is made to Buddhas in all directions. All directions usually we can understand to be in the 4 cardinal directions as well as the semi-cardinal directions, making 8 and then up and down. So sometimes it's expressed as the 10 directions. Here it's explicitly all directions. But what it comes down to is all the Buddhas everywhere are to whom this request is being made.
Chukolo Korochi is in a Sanye, so a Devgovaza, Dangan, Samlo Kuno delia, Chugi, Sanye. They so adapted that Sosugi Sangi di Chasan, Chesugi, Duna, Chasan Sangi, also US Mevache, Mevachine, Dine, Sosorangi, some didelia, Tanganzuge, Tarbata, Tamje Kimukova, Lam, Chinja Maloba, Dungandi, Sangire, Chisada Sangigi, Tarichimba Dungandi, Sangemato Yoma, Chisan Sangi said, Garsori. Gyun Tamji le Jowa, Gyun Tamji Bamba, Numo Bacha de Chiva, Gyun Tamji Bansawa, Gyun Tamji le Jowa, and the Yundengi, Chasan, and Cambe Yundan Chasan Toba, that Gyun Guna Seva Yundin Guna Demba, San Yede. Chasan Duje come down Merba, somebody Tumbigi, and Chair, got his Dembe and Den Tubigi, Nuba Yoba, Ding Yoba, Odushin, Yundin Dina Yobada. And the San Ye said, do that number Kundu, she has some jelly at Zewa Nishimba, Zewa Yoba. Zewa Yoba, Denigi, Kenzi Nusumki, Nuba Yoba, the San Ye said, the Tenichi Sebeta, San Ye Kusun to you, Yundin the Jen, the nigger Yundan, some Yundin Jen, or those Chen, San Ye gave you San Ye set up, San Ye Kusun to you, Yundin to do sending, and Jango, your rest order. And I like Kusun to some Yundan. Just now Kusun to some Yundan. Kui the Kui Nabata Marathon, the Diro Chisin Germana, Jensen, in a Kui Naba Kamna, Duje Kamna, Mever Tumbiki, Kui Nabata Marathon, Genema, Chicken, Chesoya Yoruba, this old Kui Nabata Marathon. Took the lady Kenji can be Yundan. Chetam Johnson Doba, Tarchimbe, Yeshe, Nyomobe, Chasan Bangbuke, Yundan, Bangbe Yundan, the Dove Yundan, the 2 Yundan, Chagua. Sungu Yundan, Masuya de Wata Chu, come down Meba Timpi, Sunya Jimba, Mosun Yorba, the Sungu Yundan Chagua.
In this practice, we have already imagined before us innumerable Buddhas. So now one is just, in essence, making a specific request to these Buddhas that one has imagined surrounding one already. So this is how we should relate to the first line in the Tibetan, our second line, the Buddhas in all directions. So one would imagine that one is surrounded by Buddhas, in particular in the sense of their omniscient consciousnesses, they will all be aware of you anyway. So therefore one is requesting all Buddhas. And one is requesting Buddhas in particular because they are perfected beings, which means that when they illuminate the path, when they teach, they know the path in a way that is complete and unmistaken, and therefore can guide others, including oneself, in a manner that is also ideal or perfect. When making a request to Buddhas, one does so by recalling also their good qualities. Good qualities of, for example, their physical body, in other words, the emanations in various forms, such as deities like Tara and Manjushri, that they appear to benefit beings, and the qualities of their speech in terms of how they teach in a way that's clear and easy to understand, and mental qualities such as their loving kindness, their omniscience, and so forth.
The negative Sanye Rangi, Church Sanye Tamche, Rangi Dundang, so you Sampe Mavache, and Delia, and the Sanye, the Nigi Yundan Pa, Danger, then the Sanye chicken, the Nigi, Yundan Yoba, Yapur Sampe Delia, Sanyelia, Deva, Sosugas, that's same when the Louis, when the Nigi Yundan ten, Sanyelia, Deva Zeshu, Deva Kia. Then the Lu you going to carry yourself. 류근의 라보 테마자 다니바데 테마자도 소원이스네 탈마자도 소원이 탈마자 류근의 라보 테마자 안류 구비 토네 안에 도시네 야슈고고레세다 추유콜로고지 슈야디 드니시 슈야레 지당하지 추유콜로고야게 되다고 들이야 조지 상예텐제 세답 드네 셈기가 류토네 삼류토네 상기 구송토요 연대되게 된 도시에 된 대바지지게 다 류유고네 류유넘주간의 여튼 라보 테마자 류구십의 댐벽고네 안지 도시네 다 류기 계셔로 야 송거래 타마자데 소완이세.
Here in this practice of requesting the wheel of Dharma to be turned, the first thing one does is is with confidence know that the Buddhas are surrounding you, that they are all aware of you and the requests that you are making. So at this point you've finished rejoicing, and now we are about to make this request. So have confidence that the Buddhas are observing you, observing your practice, and therefore one is engaging with them directly. Then secondly, by recalling their many good qualities, their many excellent qualities rather, then faith arises within you. So this makes the mind very powerful in how one relates to the Buddhas. And then so those 2 points relate to our second line, the Buddhas in all directions. Then what we have as our first line is the second in the Tibetan, requesting with folded hands. So here now, having generated, firstly imagined the Buddhas all around us or reminded ourselves, then having generated faith, we now express that faith by showing respect with our physical posture, by joining the palms of our hands together.
당하기는 비들어가게 소화돼. 다 소화니 생각하는 쉬고거래서 추고고를 쉬고거래서 다 쉬고가 간에 쉬고거래서는 심전둥아 문dom라 취기되면 바도 솔로서 저 쉬어야되다. 야 쉬어야되 나가 간에 된데 쉬고거래서 니니가
Yeah. The first part of what one does is mental, so that's with the line, the Buddhas in all direction. Then comes our body is involved in the request, which is the part folded hands, and then the last word in the Tibetan is requesting. So we have, that is the first. And this now, requesting is done with our speech. So in this way, we're making the request with our body, speech, and mind. And what is the request? Then it's, please light the lamp of Dharma for confused beings suffering in darkness. So those last 2 lines, this is the speech, the oral component. The physical component was joining our hands. And then by recalling the Buddhas all around us, or imagining them being around us, and doing so with the mind of faith, that is the mental components of the request.
다들이야 디네리도와 대변하는 중앙알미도 소와데 유소와데 세 유데 상기 초조 상기 남지파 랑이 둘라사 답 데네 삼류톤에 상기 유구선도 유연데디에 전제 상기를 대바게 데네 류유근의 류기 넘주르톤에 나라보 테마지의 류구셔도 대바게 다 나게 권에 나게 권다 오다 비지 야슈오데 나게 시시오다 시스마주는 기시바로다 지나데 나게 권에 야소야 슈야디 가르스네 셈제 둥아 문dom라 취기되면 봐도 소야세 슈야디로와.
So how we make this request is with our body, speech, and mind. The mind again is a mind of faith directed towards all the Buddhas in 10 directions, all the Buddhas existing. And one makes this request with one's body too, by folding the hands with a mind of respect, and then with speech. One makes this request with the lines, please light the lamp of Dharma for confused beings suffering in darkness.
된다들라 심제 동안 문dom라 시 된다 가르송거스네 셈젠시도 당한서 코와 감숨라니 되게 셈젠데 예세월 셈젠 차사다 감숨 코와는 비교 셈젠 되게 안에 가서를 dungayi dungada, yuwe dungada, chaba duji dungayi nyongchine, dungayi dosi nyongchi, nyonggu kuwareche. Taka simche kashineda, dungayi dungada, yuwe dungada, chaba duji, dunga sunga nyonggu yoba. Simche kashineda, dunga menayang, yuwe dungada, chaba duji dunga nyonggu yoba. Simche kashida, yuwe dunga, kaso chaba duji dunga jibu nyongadu. Chesa, kamsum kowane nipe simchen kanishine, dunga sumye narne, dunga sumye nyonggu yoba, kangade ti tu husawar simchen dunga sede. Digare shene, dunga yungudu sene, chesa, mun sede, mun tom sede, mun sede, chesa, nyomombo panya dang, nyemombo panya ke tablam dang, nyamlen che ma shingba, munba sede, munba, timu munbege, pa jibche ne. Dadi mun sede, dinade munba nala, kaso lianyi namye ma shingba, munba, mongba, marikba, mongba, dine nyo che tamche rangshin jidawa shino ma toba, denzi. 문바 딜라다 지방고 용으로 참모즈나 최담제 라신 덴바 라실 몽비게 몽바 딘지사지 몽바 문바세오라다 문바세 노공으로 자고로 제가 문바세야 디나신다 딘지메나 딘데 레균제 네스 마신바 몽바 마리바 문바 안디나신다 안주게 기회 자와다 딕바 뽀야게 레니게 넘버 체마시비 문바 마리바 데니게 문바 데니게 몽베 마리바 문바디 가서 여봐서 니 문바디게 빠직 냠네 제마셔 봐 골마 톰제 하모가 되듯이서 그러다 하모가 되듯이서 제산 감숨다 네베 샘젠 둥어에 날네 녀되겐 되게 아니시게 레니게 남예다 냠네 제마셔비 문바 마리바 디 몽제네 책파식 몽 톰시도 하모가지 좀 마시고 그 톰되고 톰되시 되니 톰되셔서 그러다 가지 야 휴고다 야 가서 저 송급이 김전데 야 되는 휴고로다 되는 레샤스 내가 본부들이야 주로고 지르지 저도 다보 소소 강하시오랑 저 강하 된데도 되네 강하도 강하세요 로고 지르지라고 그러와 어디나 신당한 저기 저 감성 코알은 내겐 저기 되니게 뭐바 마리비 원게 톰지는 코에 둥어들래 잘마도 와지 되네 지 두스되게 샤스 지난 네수디 다보 강하도 주고월다
The third line in Tibetan is our fourth line, for confused being suffering in darkness. So here one is making one's request to, or this request can be a supplication. So the first thing we do is when requesting help, so generally in our everyday life, when we ask a friend to help us, we explain why. Please help me because I have this problem, that problem. Help me with this situation. So just like in our daily life, when asking for help, we explain why we are in need. This is what we do here. So when stating or supplicating the Buddhas, we say the reason why we need to be helped, and that is for confused beings suffering in darkness. So beings here, then we should understand to be suffering sentient beings throughout the three realms of samsara, whether in the desire or the form or formless realm. In other words, every non-liberated being, on their behalf, we're making this request, or for their benefit rather, we are making their request. And they are suffering in any one of the three ways, so the threefold division of suffering. Some suffer from all three, suffering of physical, mental pain, suffering of transient happiness, and all pervasive suffering. So some beings, such as ourselves, experience all three. Some beings only experience two of the three types of suffering, the suffering of transient happiness and all-pervasive suffering of conditioning, whereas other beings only experience all-pervasive suffering of conditioning. But whether a being is experiencing one, two, or all three types of the threefold division of suffering, we're making the request, please help these beings. And then furthermore, the term darkness. So darkness, when we see this, it usually refers to the darkness of ignorance, and sometimes the darkness of a different word for ignorance, confused ignorance. So here we can take it to mean both. So there's the darkness of confused ignorance, the ignorance of confusion, where one is confused and ignorant about what is virtuous, in other words, what should be adopted, and what is non-virtuous, what should be abandoned. So one here is making this appeal because ourselves and others are have this confused ignorance, as well as a second type of ignorance, the ignorance we normally hear about, the ignorance of true grasping. Beings are still tormented by believing that phenomena exist in a way that they just do not. So when you hear darkness, it can refer to either of these, usually confused ignorance of confusion, but here it refers, we can take it as referring to both, being confused about both.
Andari negi tom sede mun tom la tom sede tom deba sede dangan je jedang ma sing ba deba je gewi nyamnen gewachi ma hada miu go ba tobi tablam nyamnen je ma sing ba tarba tobi tablam nyamnen je ma she ba sanyo go ba tobi je lam nyamnen je ma sing ba she du shine de yores garjene je sing go ma sene di 하고 거 말했어요. 냠는 지다 림바디 마싱 바시 몽바 몽디시다 하고 가지고 몽디여레스 몽바레스 디 몽베 왕게 신경 놓으시네 좀 텐디시 다디네 자다 다 가르쳐 걸었으네 디니 만족이 몽베 문바디 파세고 거로 봐도 매바서 거로 봐디 매바서 봐라 아니 지게 저기 면주제다 데니기 칼라노 누로세네 데니기 매바서야 매바리와 매바자 데니기 셈기 문바 마리바 몽바디 매바서 봐라 아니 디 람냠네 저 곰지 매바서 고래 제산디 곰신에게 된다라 아니 최지 마송고 고르와데 최마 냠레린 바땡고 고르와 냠레린 바땡 바이나 안 델레데네 냠레린 바 제다신 이 제다신도 냠수 렌요도 문바 세도 고르와 대인자 최기 되면 빠르도 솔라스 최기 되면 세데 저 되면라는 아주 네 최면을 완전만 최면제 대산도 로디게 왜디게 저라 제상은 좀 너고 나라 직 잘라서도 마타만 너고 나가신 디네 직 잘라고 하여나서 제가 균이 마신 것들 로지 파서는 웨딩 자들이 통고와 통진 어디에도 대도선 제나 파서 줘야 될 신경으로 디나신 최규 준비 벌도 소시되다 로바와나인 한 주산 얘기마 남대 냠리 림바지 소로시에서 최규 준비 세대 다 최규 준비 세대 산얘기 남대 송얘기 최딜 고거를 최대 벌도 소로서 벌세다 송발을 고거다 송다디 남유능한 저기 준비 벌스도 최면시에 대샤제 매직 계제 파 지금도 제나 최면 벌와라고로 처럼 벌고로 매 벌고로 대지판이 제 최면들 바 매직 계제 직파 제도 매 벌용으로 제산 벌와라고로 다들들라 최기 벌스도 송로 벌스도 송로 제시고래 최기 준비해야지 탈바다 탐제 기보 고방 토베 남기 림바 냠리 림바 송지제 되네 송지 남녀 림바지 송로지에서 최규 점에서데 산지게 송디제 최디제 바도 소에서데 송로지에서 거다.
So maybe the final line, just to be more literal, we could move the second word and have for beings suffering in darkness of confusion, because this is how we should understand these two words, darkness and confusion. Is the two really together? Why is one in darkness? Because one is confused. What is one confused about? How to create the causes for good rebirth, how to attain liberation, how to attain enlightenment. In other words, how to cultivate the parts of the Dharma within. That is what one is confused about, and that is why one is in darkness. So in Tibetan, the words darkness and confusion are together. So in the translation, that would be better. For being suffering in the darkness of confusion. So what do beings need when they are lost in the darkness of confusion? They need light. And this then brings us to the fourth line in the Tibetan, our third line. Please light the lamp of Dharma. So this is then a request to the Buddhas. Please teach beings so that beings can overcome their confusion, can liberate themselves from this darkness and this darkness or this confusion. The analogy of a lamp is used because in the times before electricity, then we relied on lamps for light. And when a lamp is lit, then suddenly one, if one's outside, would be able to find one's way. Or if one was inside, one could find what one was seeking. So hence this analogy. And the way we should understand the term light, as in the verb light, as in lighting the lamp, here it means to teach. So one is requesting that the Dharma be taught, because it's through the Dharma being taught that beings, darkness of confusion, their lack of knowledge of the Dharma will be overcome, and they will be able to cultivate the Dharma within.
That is Tarbata Temje Kimbi, Goban Toy, Dunda, Church Sonro Chess, Ruada, Church Sonro Chess. The Garden Sungor Lana, Manzo Tarbata Temje Kimbi, Goban Toy, Yamlet, the Kanajina Hamoche, and Yamlet Jishing Mindus, Yamlet Haku Mindus, Jishing Mindus, Chizan Dineza, Manzo Koala Tartu Mindus, Chizan Koala Tarbigi, Tablam Yamlin Jishing Mindus, Chizan D. Jishing Yamlet, Mashing Body, Shingbugi Chedo, Hagoyagi Chedo, Kuragiti, Church Sonro Chess. Tanga the Pagero, she shaman, the Nechegoro.
So to express this request in regular language, when one is saying, please, I'm bound in these suffering realms. I don't know what to do about it. I am still here, suffering. I need to attain liberation from suffering, full enlightenment. But I haven't yet done this because I don't yet really know how. Therefore, please teach the Dharma.
Then Corona Chasan Shingo, that's not yet. Corona Chasan Shingo, these Mason Roches. That is what I'm to say. Some of the Penzu, Robert, Pagina. The thing is, Jeta machine, but in Alhadishas. And this is what the unity time, as a computer, Tola, the Roda, so smash it. Then Kanechi and a machine, but Shing Miduchi, Legally, machine, but those Tom details. Casting at the Jeta Uni Shing Midus. And Coran Pay, I was single, Coran to Rochi, she said, Coran Girochi, said Jorvada, the Girochi, the city, Coran Pay, I was single, and negotiated the between the lower mother, Coran Tzawan, she Jelaya Marva, Dinjing Marva, she's not as do and the Coran Pay, I was single, Coran Dizu and Alia Girochi, and negotiated the large or dinner, she that Manzuki, Papa sometimes. Papa some dinero, she's not that Sanji, choose on it, and the Gujep, Denigi, sick. That chick tobu hero, that sick, the Pabi sick to which you did over Chagorwa.
And we are requesting to the Buddhists because they are the ones who are experts in this field. And so we can liken this to if one has computer problems. So when one's computer is not working, it's a huge problem. Suddenly, many things are going wrong, or many things we cannot do because our computer isn't working properly. So the sense of desperation, we go to a skilled technician and say, all these things are going wrong, please help me. So in a similar way, recognizing that we are bound in these suffering realms, we turn to the perfected beings. You who have completed this path, you who have walked this path, help us, please.
Oh, yeah. That don't allow you can young limit so at you. That's also Rangi, Dangan Yamle, Baja, the Dangangi Dunia, Choju Sanje, Tamje, Masa, Chasan Shu, Sabache, Tamabache, Sanji, Guyu Yende, and the Sungu, Tugu Yenden, the Chetamje, the Kimbe Yenden, Chetamje, Onsun Doba, Tarshan Bada, Shen Samja Tamjila, Zewa Nichimbo, the Demba. Kimbe Yenden, Zewe Yenden, and Nubu Yende Yoba, and Dushi Yende Yoba the Yete. And the San Guyu Yende, Sanji Guyu Naba, Naso, Dunja, Samjan, Kamda Meba, the Tibokuni, Guyu Naba, Dunja, Shanlia, Pendo Jugubada. Then the Sungu Yende, Sanji, Sung, and the Samjan, Kamda Meba, the Timbigi, Sung, and Jige, Sung, Che, Jige. Givo Chumi Lamjiremba, Jingi Lamjire, Chamber Lamjir, Denegi, Jigger, Kamna Mobile Timbuche, Nabana Sote, Sung Jeshan, Pandu Yoba, Denegi Yoba, some Dajin, Sanji Kusung to you and the part, those change and that Sanjilia, Sanji said, Bemas, Kitchen Chimbo, Sa Chimbo Chuchiri, you intend the Nepon Sopa Yoba, Delia Deba Zechi to Che. Deba Komne Tinesangi Rangi, Luigi Lani, Temaja, Lu Kujeta Timbi Tone, also Soa Dibete, Dampo Dice, that the nigger Soa Dibu, Dampo, Side Tapche, that Lusimki, Luda Simki, Dangan Zugi Ducene, Dampo Yunten, the Lugi, Lungagi, Lugi, when a Tamacha had Ducin, the Red Wada.
Just to start then to summarize this verse. Firstly, with our mind, we remind ourselves of the Buddhas we've imagined before us and remind ourselves actually all Buddhas with their omniscient consciousness are aware of our practice right now. So they're aware that we are progressing through the seven limb prayer. And so that's first with our first stage with the mind. Then we recall the many excellent qualities of the Buddhas, such as their mental qualities, such as incredible loving kindness, wisdom, the power of their minds. Then in terms of their body, the emanations that appear in all realms, in all manners, in order to help beings. And then in terms of their speech, their faultless teachings, they give perfectly in accordance with the disposition and inclination of beings. So this we do on the mental level, and then we show from the faith that arises within us, with inspiration, we join our palms together, show respect by joining our hands in this way, and then with our speech, we make this request or this supplication.
Anda che sonro che shubi ge shudi kable kunlo ine da rang so so jibu ge samma da je ngala ya che sonro je nga kanga la thawu de be samla memba je jiza kamsum ge semja tham je dunga yi na she dunga na gyue dunga da chaba du ji ge de ne ge dunga na de sha jiza da dunga de le se bi ge tabla ma shin ba je ma shin be mari be wong ge mo je ne da de sha she dang nymo ge wong do song je ne an ko wa de la tharma do ba du ji tarmato dus devanza de yores 지상 코와딜에 타고도 동아딜에 세고도 지상 딜세야 상이기 최송제 최대 냠는 제제 타는마도 셴냠지가 하면 대자 셈잔탐 이제 고요 동아래 타르체 타르베고 타르바 탐지게 보고 봐 토고도 대자 상이기 최지 송로체 지상다 상이기 최지 송제의 송로체 대 만주 송대 송바대 냠소 렌제 냠렌지기 세베게 어다디는 군론을 마서는 셈잔 탐지 동하게 타르제 타르바 탐지기 보고 마토비하게 논달이야 군론디 셈잔 탐지기 논 삼다제 되네 안사지기야 타르바 탐지기 보고 마토 람냠네 이름바 아니 아주 취지 취기 좀 빠도서 취지 송로제 세데 어두 슈슈예베게다 뭐 소소기 마바체제 두시는 삼다제 직디기 파되고 인서로다.
Then we recite these last two lines with the motivation that please teach us, not just me, but all suffering sentient beings. Please teach myself and all other suffering sentient beings, because we are suffering, we're lost in darkness and we are confused. And we're in this pitiful state, lost without a guide, lost without a guide, and without a guide we cannot gain freedom from suffering. So please guide all of us, teach us, guide us to freedom.
아다디 주요콜로 소와데 비에기다 도치는 시다 야 삼나타나디 도치 다데네 냥알레메다 소와데 바스도 냥알레메다 소와데 바 시데다 야와 냥한 데샤라 탈모제데 소와니 조지 동버르 미고진 가바 밤에 슈퍼솔스.
So that then is the way to think, to engage with a verse such as this when requesting the wheel of Dharma to be turned. So not just a mere recitation, but engaging wholeheartedly and as presented with one's body, speech and mind. Then coming to the sixth verse, where requesting to remain. Requesting with folded hands the conquerors who may otherwise pass away. Please remain for countless eons, not leaving us to wander blind.
지난 냥을 다와세데 냥을 다와세데 지난 냥은 세데 뇨모발라고 그래. 지난 뇨모바 냥을 다와세는 뇨모바 빵제 빵바서 뇨모바 빵바 타르바 토와데라 뇨모발라 다와세. 뇨모바 딜레 다네 아니 가왈레 타르바 토바데라 뇨 냥을 다와세데 타르바 토바세 고고래. 지난 안저 bên dawa said sajidine the lumbadine da sares the lumbadi shan drosabat gura 제가 냥을레 dawa said 다세기 sajid 마선 냥은 녀모 버디체 델레 다와레라도 데 메버서 사와레스라 다 녀모 빵 사와레스도 빵나 탈바마도 요마로 제가 탈바 토바레스 냥을레 dawa said 녀모 빵제 탈바 토바세디 두스고 고고레 냥을레 dawa said 지당
So in English, in the second line, the conquerors who may otherwise pass away. If you have translations in front of you, the word you'll see, instead of pass away, you'll find the word nirvana, because the Tibetan is the word for nirvana. So the meaning of this Sanskrit word nirvana is, in English, this gets translated as gone beyond sorrow. So it refers to passing beyond, and sorrow is another way to express the afflictions. So when one passes beyond the afflictions, it means that one has attained the state of liberation, being liberated from the afflictions, and that is the state of nirvana. So the meaning of the word nirvana in English is translated as gone beyond sorrow, where sorrow means here the afflictions, gone beyond the afflictions. In other words, attained liberation or nirvana.
지사 냥디에서 다 탈바세도 된다 지바 냥디에서 냥은 다와세 다 측뒤제 냥디에라고 하는 냥디에서 냥을 다와는다 탈바세 고고 지사 녀모바 빵비 빵바 녀모바레 빵바 탈바레서 녀모바 빵바레서 고고데 탈바스고 냥디에서도 지단이 된듯이 고고래
And this
진양대선 당을 탈바스 대신 양세 양아스 녀모 발라이마 델레 대바스 녀모 빵발로 여러와서 탈바스 제자 양안레 다와세디 대신 아주 갈고르스네 양안레 다와세 양안세데로 녀모 발라고래지 다와라는 녀모 빵발로 고래지 제자 녀모 빵바도 녀모 발라 탈바로 탈바스 고래지 양대세도.
So the Tibetan has these two terms, or two words together that comprises nirvana. The first being sorrow, and the second gone beyond. So sorrow, here we should understand, it means afflictions. It's a different word for afflictions, but in this case, it means afflictions. And then gone beyond. So one's gone beyond the afflictions, or to express it differently, one's gone beyond suffering, one's gone beyond sorrow. So this is the meaning of the word that we usually use in Sanskrit as nirvana, or there's a different Tibetan word, liberation. So usually when one talks about liberation, there is a liberation from the afflictions, there's the afflictions and their seeds, and liberation, full liberation.
균도네 주로시에 사시고라다 덴도 주로시에 사시고라 맞아 차르지 되 송제 된 디페샤바이나 네 최송한디 모든 렉마르와 제자 데자 냥알레 메다와스 야와스로 상게시고라 제자 상게데 냥알레 메다와 주로시에 사데 다 냥알레 메다와스 다 더드나가 저기 제 상게 냥알레 메다와 주로시에 사데 아 저기 파게네 슈슈베나 상게데 지게 다데 아주 꾸이 넘버 된바 다가랑 아주 꾸이 넘버 마두바 슈로셔서 셰서 슈나 꾸이 넘버 마두바죠 셰서 마슈나 안저 시와죠 안저기 수부딩 아주 시르된 아주 수부디 제베 잡지 샤샤제 현다질 주고로와 대랑한 저기 수부데데 남시데 드레체 수부디 샤제 안지 남시 현다 조딩 아주 시와레스 파겔이야 안딩 아주 디베시단 거로와 제자다 상계디 꾸이 넘버다 당한줄 꾸이 넘버 된되바디 꾸디에 대하지 넘버 2기셰 가서 20대 파 대단 자지 줘봐이나 냥을 다 와서 그래 제자데 셰스주나 상계 냥을 다 와서 그래 상계 냥을 다 먼저 파이게라 미파바라 안지 시와레서 그거 제자데 상계 꾸이 넘버 된제 변의 상계 좀 된데 아주 미 꾸이 넘버 된도와 간심질이야 대지 냥을 다와래라 그래도 꾸이나 미 넘버 된 풍부 대다 샤지는 디 넘버 쉐바디 and 로소 된제 페버와 페반제 데라 상기 좀 되는 양을 다와라 거와 시선 맞은다 상기 좀 되는 시와 시고로다 어두시네 다데 데려야 야와 양을 마다와 슈스소 제데 양을 미다와 시디 야와 공부 마소지 슈로 셰시고다
In Tibetan, there's the normal level of language that we use when speaking amongst each other. Then there's honorific that one uses in certain circumstances and to certain people. There's also a level then of high honorific that one uses in more restricted to more restricted level of person. So bearing that in mind, and bearing in mind the meaning of the word nirvana, gone beyond sorrow, the meaning of nirvana here, or as I've translated it, pass away, is when you're requesting the Buddhas not to pass away, because literally, let's say Buddha Shakyamuni were to appear before us in human form, one would request, please remain within this body, do not pass beyond this body, because the high honorific way of saying, please do not die, would be do not pass beyond sorrow, or do not pass, as it's usually translated, do not pass into nirvana, but it's really do not die. But that's kind of coarse, so it's a very polite way to say, please do not die. That is the meaning here of do not pass into nirvana, or do not pass away. Because what one is requesting is that the Buddhas that are amongst us, to remain amongst us in human form. Because what is death? It is when consciousness and the body in which it is currently abiding separate, and consciousness moves on to a new body. So here we are requesting the conquerors, or the Buddhas, to please remain amongst us in their physical form, amongst us, surrounding us, so that they continue to teach and guide us. So this is the meaning here of why we're requesting the conquerors or the Buddhas to not pass away.
Gabriel Gombo Soba said, the Shiwari mother, Yangal Dawa said 60 pitch, don't go mare. Carre Lamna, Naranzo, she or the Lenu only Shiwore. Leda Nyomo only Shiwore, Ranzole, Rawayo Mare, Ranzo Leda Nyomo only Shidu, Rawamba Shidu. She is on the Kiwachima how to was in Anna Halaki, Anna Miliki, Anna, and the Jig Yawa Casode, Nasoliki. She's on Korea near Mato, Yamede. She's not Korea near the Kiwur, Ranzo. She's an Ranzo Yangal Dawa said, Vishitango. She says, that's Sangi, you good number the Dunje, not good number the Payage, Duchine, Shanda's Sanjak Horrors, Nyawal Dryamar, Ansol Dumarwa. Mili Casa Leda Nyomo call near the Kimarwa, Dakawa yours and Yangale, Nyomo Pompe, Tarvala, Tarbico, Takara Nigorwa, Cesa Sanjay, the good number do the Shesa machine, Gombo and do, and then Kawa worse and number ship in Yangali, the Yanatigi, Yanatilia sugar, there's a Tarvalia, Tarbico until Takara sugar, etc. Cesa Dinesa, Sanjay Yangala Dawa, said good number the ye. Duchenia, and Tarvalia, Shutubanja, Yangala Dawas, Congress Pistagor. Chesangazolya, she did the Tabal to go Marwa, Yan and Ansolji, Corvian and Milike, Corvinella Gigiobaza, Tarbal Ligiomar, and then Yang de Ligiomar, Chesan Yangala Dawa Lagiomar. Chesan Sanjil and Yangala Dawa said, Yangala Dawa, composed to the Yangala Dawa love word, Yumzegas and Sanji, you could number but do you do, and Kawanam Shekos, Nyomo Pompe, Yangadigi. Near the sugars, tell to was and Yangle Dawas. That draws Yangle Dawas, draws at the sugar. Chesa, Tanganzo did to Gomas and Yangle Dawala, Tagawa was she were a Gadiki, Nasoniki, Casode, comes from Korean near the Kigor and Zada, Yangle Dawas, Pistangoma. This is a Sangil and Yangle Dawas, Pistango, Gimzendi, Sangi, you could number them by the Duo do, 뒤지 풍벌이 자시되 넘바 쉐바데 가오로스네 이니 녀모바 빵베 코르비 냐데 코로 다가라 니기요로 봐지자 냥알레 다와시오레.
This particular honorific word for death is not used amongst ordinary people, such as ourselves, because and there's a different Tibetan word that is used. Well, there's several, in like a gradient of respect that is utilized. But one does not, for us ordinary people, use this word, do not pass beyond sorrow for ordinary people, because people such as ourselves, when death comes, is not something we have control over. Which realm, which life we go to next, we don't have control over, because we are still bound within the suffering realms of samsara. Our propelling karma that we have accumulated dictates where our next rebirth will be, because we are still bound within samsara by our afflictions. We have not gone beyond sorrow or gone beyond the afflictions, whereas as liberated beings, and certainly Buddhas, have. So to such a being, it makes some sense to say, do not go beyond sorrow, because they have attained nirvana. So requesting them to remain within this body, amongst us, by utilizing that term, has some meaning. Whereas for us it would be very strange amongst each other to say, oh, I hope you don't pass beyond sorrow, because, well, it would be very nice to attain liberation. But so anyway, for us ordinary people, we use a very different word.
New Zealand New Zealand draw de la grua. Just not draws a such di kishiro. New Zealand draw is. New Zealand Maroches, the Roches. Says your water. Odinashi, Java Nyangandi, the good Yang Tarbico and Maroche, under the Shuroche says. She's not Java Nyangale Dawa, said the Sanyi Pumbo Duce, and the Yatrosity. Nyangandi, the Huda, which is the New Zealand Maroche said. Go New Zealand to Gora said, which is a ko New Zealand to say midi to go like you ko desa sajidida need that janshi or chisa sanje nyangale midaro chesidu nyangale dawa sidu sanji nyangale ya pesati need go chisa jawa nyangale midawa sidia ju pumbo de duishine kui pumbo ya duishine ya nyangde ya mapewa che dagara shuro chesa chune gorda.
Where we would talk in a similar way in society is if you're requesting someone not to go somewhere else, not to cross over for example, the national boundary. So if you were to request someone not to go to New Zealand, for example, you'd say, please do not go to New Zealand, stay amongst us here in Australia. So then we would talk in this way. But this particular term is really only used in a very specific context, requesting a holy being not to pass from amongst us.
Onda tsik dambo de nyangan jawa nyangan de shela sido da sowa tepsa ki nyangan me da sowa de se yu di sanje de ngoi songor ya. Da jawa nyangan de shela sido da garso orsane da sanje denigi da kui namba tunga ju chu kolo ko ne da ji pembar tu da jera gi yang ji pendo yongsa mare samda da jera nga de beje mindu sambay na den ya da nga ji ke kui namba duni ji shandal piyin sambe ke samlo ligor da Bendigo combo ligorage, Bendigo combo yuba de la sword, Yawan and Deshe las, Bendigo, Peg, combo shiguba in a Droyak, some dung in the chess machine, Droyak some dawasura, Bendigo, the Droyak some combo Duce, combo coding de la, and the Tamacha de Lanya, Tamacha de Sugar, Sugar, Yawa, Yang and Deshe la, Tamacha de Sowani, said that all this. Denigi Yavati Gavati Kelia and Denigi Deshination Kiwi Kuson to Yundena, Denigi getting just to Tembetone, and ya and Sugar Tamaluki and the Tamaja, Lukushipton, Sugar Edge, Tamaja, so on is.
So first then look the second line. The conquerors who may otherwise pass away. So here we're making this request to all the Buddhas. And the purpose of making such a request or supplication is because the holy beings stay amongst us when there is they see clear benefit to do so. Otherwise, they might as well appear elsewhere, emanate elsewhere. So therefore, when we're making a supplication or request such as this, it is to make further causes for the holy beings to remain amongst us, to counteract any possibility of them emanating elsewhere rather than remaining amongst us. So this is the motivation behind making requests such as this. Then in our first line, we have the word making this request or supplication, it's the same word, with folded hands. So the process, other than the meaning, the process of that we as meditators go through in the 6th verse is the same as for the 5th, in that to whom is the supplication to be made? To all the Buddhas or the conquerors. Sorry, my throat's complaining. So we making to whom is this supplication be made? To all the conquerors. So then firstly, mentally, we call to mind that we've imagined them all around us, and all the conquerors everywhere are with their omniscient consciousnesses are aware of us. So this is the same as before, and similarly, we then recall their many excellent qualities of their body, speech, and mind. With that, we generate a mind of faith. So this is how we make the supplication on the mental level, and then on the physical level, we join our palms together respectfully, and then thirdly, we make the request with our speech, and that will come in the 3rd and 4th line. So that's all the same as with requesting the Wheel of Dharma to be taught. The difference, though, is the motivation, where we requesting the Buddhas to remain amongst us and thereby creating causes for them to continue to remain amongst us and teach. So I may have missed that. We're requesting them to remain amongst us specifically to teach, and therefore we're creating causes for them to remain amongst us and continue to teach.
And the tone that you cone, mother, Nambu, Lu Tamoja, and the Jiggy, Lu Kusha Tempecone, Jihad, Lu Yukone, the Jihading, Lu Yida, Sim Yukone, the Jihad is Nisha. That in an eye going to so at the Reda, to send a soya de Tamoja, so on, so at the Karashu and Jodi, Dumbre Miguel, Gawatame, Shus Sola said that, now going to so at the Dirwa, Gawat, Yan Medawa, Shus Sols and Shuyadi did it 60 that.
So again, to all the object, or to whom one is making the request, is to all the Buddhas, those one has imagined, but also on an intellectual level, not just what one imagines around one, but on an intellectual level, one reminds oneself, all the Buddhas are present, they are aware of us. And then we generate faith by recalling the many good qualities, and then as an expression of this faith, we show our palms joined together, showing respect with our body, and then we express the faith and respect that's arisen within us through our speech, and that's with the 3rd and 4th line. Please remain for countless eons, not leaving us to wander blind.
Jodi Dongbar Miguijins, Jodi se, Joa, Disos, or that Joa Disi, comes on Kovala, Nene, Digitambo Sheva Najin, comes on Kovala, Nene, Dungan, you can Joa Disos or Jodi said. That is a Dongbar said, this and Mig Meba Nashi, Ya Tarba Tamjikibio, Ya Tobalia, Yaming J machine budget do your essay, machine budget, Kovala, Cabinet do your essay, Jodi Dongbar. That Miguijin said, Dine Cam Dubaza, Dinig Simjan Chazana. 코와딜레 주해제야 타바 탐제 김bio 고만라 결혼을 고고를 해서 미국에서 고고를 그 마사지 봐도 세월다 심지어 탐지 거기 대진이게 거기 나니게 심지어 탐지 코월에 저해져야 탈바다 탐지 캠벨에 그 마사지 봐도 미국에 지금 그 마사지 봐도 안에 가와 장면 봐 가와 가서 쉬고나 대 쉬로시에 사지 그 마사지 봐도 쉬로시에 사 심지어 탐지 거기 동안에 저해져야 탈바다 탐지 캠벨 고방라 그 마사지 봐도 결혼 휴제 만들이야 가소래 야 남된제야 탈바탐 지키고 고발로 고고래 재상 고고도 디고 마사바도 슈로시스 다 로가제 되고선 가와 장매바 슈로시스 균리 오시다 고 마사바도 가와 장매바 슈로시스.
Then to look at the request or the supplication, please remain for countless eons, not leaving us to wander blind. So us will refer to all beings bound in the suffering realms of samsara. So we're not making this request, just like with the previous verse, we're not making this request for ourselves alone, but for all suffering beings, ourselves and all others throughout the realms of samsara, for the sake of all of us who are blind. And again, blind, similar to earlier with darkness, refers to being bound by confused ignorance or obscured by confused ignorance, not knowing how to cultivate a path within, not knowing how to gain freedom from suffering. And then requesting not leaving us, in other words, to express it in an opposite way, please remain with us until we attain liberation from samsara. In other words, until each and every sentient being has attained liberation from samsara, do not leave us. Remain amongst us. Even though, fourth line, this will, or in English third line, even though this will mean you must please remain with us for countless eons. So again, the reason why we're requesting them to remain, the conquerors to remain with us for countless eons, because that is how long it's going to take for each and every sentient being to no longer wander blind, to attain liberation from suffering.
비디나시로와다 내가 상이기 내가 자와지야데 가르스는 감좀 코가 동안에 되게 샘된데게 야 최대 냠는 제주되네 아진 탈발이야 꼬야 되로와다 뒤꼬야 돼 딩꼬에 마사버도 결혼 주로시에서 안 로가즈 슈고레스 너니 숨다 로가즈 슈고를 남나 까와 장매버 슈로시에서 내가 마사버도 까와 장매 같이 슈고고이네 다 마사버도 슈로시에서지 샘전 탐제 상기게 살아 꼬이네 다 결혼을 취해야 샘전 탐제 상 마예버도 수월 다 간질도다 샘전 탐제 탈바다 상기 고방 마도 바도 결혼 차상 슈로 디바도 결혼 슈로시에서도 제가 샘전 탐제 코 냥야 탈바 탐제 김발로 고에 마사에 봐도 결혼 같이 슈고나 까바 장매 바까지 슈고나 슈로시에서지 디사디 가젤 고에 바디 레갈체 디 마사 봐도 다 슈에디 균
So perhaps this is done here at the Dharma Center, I don't know. If someone has a particular task and they ask, so how long do you want me to work on this task for? They may be told, until it's finished. So similarly, this is the request being made to the Buddhas. Please continue until your responsibility has been fulfilled. Please continue until each and every being has been guided to cultivate freedom within, even though this will take countless eons.
제사데 공부서 살때 윤고 쉬러셔서 라마 구제 우패도 양 된쇼 양시 부여다 안에 지게 양지게 라마 구제 양지 라마 뉴시시 디네시도 양 된쇼 부여라서 용으로 제가 디네자 디den쇼에서 양한미도 소화되와 책을 된쇼 부여돼 제가 그 구세 티라니 티라바도 쉬러셔서 야 쉬고로 만지 부쉬고로 denshi pugimendo wane. Denshi pugido wa, denshi pugide kawata de, lama chunshun jide lai denshi jia pugimendo wane. Jisa lama ya chenpo che gonglo no kala kansam gengpa che de denshi maa pugido wa. Jina denegi, ya lama degi do su, jik yung ne dene yobe ne ya che lama le denshi puye che wadwa. Yung jide gongpo zo sha se ma zo shuro che se wadwa.
The request that's being made here is the same request as is made in a long life puja. And you may have noticed with long life pujas, they tend not to be offered when a lama is still young. But when the lama is aging, then they start to get offered. And when the lama's aged quite a bit, then they get offered fairly regularly. But the intent behind a long life puja is just like is being requested here with this verse.
Da dunda la ngan zuge kare shuo sene sanji ji kusong tu ye yuan jian jian ane de ba zi ju zhe la ni temo chen ne da ngan zu ko wi dong le ne de ge sem jian tam ji ko wa le ni ji kyam de xia ji sa sanji gi ma yun wo shu xie ne ngan zu ye lam dun che de ge yan ne ya de song che lam dun jie jie sem jian tam ji ko wi dong le zhe ji ta ba da tam ji gi me go ba ma to ji ba do ne sanji 그 ane kui namba maduba che ma shu che nga zu ya do shu ro che shu che nga zu ya jik do che ne che nyam ne de che shu ro che sa de na yin wo de da.
The essence of this verse is that one calls to mind, first imagines Buddhas around you, then calls to mind all their many incredible qualities, and with this understanding of their qualities comes the yearning to become like them. Therefore, one requests yet again, please teach us. And in order to teach us, remain amongst us, remain physically amongst us, and do so for as long as it takes, until not just me, but every being gains freedom from suffering.
대더르 디다 군지에 대 개와 다기 사바강 데니 심전 탐지유 동알 탐지 세워 쇼서시 대더르 디다 군지에 대 개와 강기 개와 다기 사바강 데니 심전 탐지유 동알 탐지 세워 쇼서 아니
Then we go to the next verse. We don't have it up, so I'll just read it a few times. So the next verse now is the final limb, that of dedication. Through all that I've done, may this virtue thus accumulated eradicate all suffering and misery of each and every sentient being.
디 지단에 개봉 오와제 최고라 되나다 지네드니 야 개발기 오와제 얼마 리거 도날 가서는 대더르 디다 군지에 나 다다 저녀만의 개와 사바다 다다 소소하게 냠는 집이 갑리야 아니라 뒤고네 개와 사바 강이 바 탐제서라 대다 군지바 대다 탐제 개와 군제데 개와 다기 사바강 세도 라니기 개와 사바다 안는 녀마 사바다다 만주기 지기 야라드베 냠는 집이 가라 40배 개와 아니 지게 40배다 랑기 되니게 사배 개와 강이 바 탐제해서 그러다 개와 강이 바 탐제 안지 가르쳐 오래서는 샘전 탐제기 동화 탐제단 동화 탐제 세워 쇼서 개와 딜라디네 샘전 탐지기 동화 가르치베나 파 세세 아니 지게 매버 주로 쇼 매버 주위게 딜라디네 매버 주로 쇼서 돼 되니게 주로 쇼서 돼 뭐하게 되리다 돈달레 되리샤.
So read the verse again. Through all that I have done, may this virtue thus accumulated eradicate all suffering and misery of each and every sentient being. here, this dedication, the first 2 lines, through all that I have done, may this virtue thus accumulated. So here what we are dedicating is the virtue of this 7 limb prayer, plus the virtue that we have already accumulated, so prior to right now. All this virtue thus accumulated, now in this meditation, as well as previous to this, I dedicate in this way. Then that's the first 2 lines in the verse. Through all that I've done, may this virtue thus accumulated. Then how is it dedicated? So the next 2 lines are a general dedication. The verses that follow this are a specific dedication. So this is just a general dedication. Through all that I've done, may this virtue thus accumulated eradicate all suffering and misery of each and every sentient being.
다디 가르치도 무구에서는 라니 지구 디기용다 라니 지구 타바토에 됨바 많이 바지 샘전 탐지 기 동화세제 동화세와 쇼스 동화세네 디게와 델라테네 샘전 탐지 동화세와 쇼스 다 동화세야도 샘전 동화세네 샘전 탐지 타바 탐지 기부 고마 토비 규르규와 쇼스로다 야바디 데네게 규르규와 쇼스 샘전 탐지기 동화세야 샘전 탐지기 탈도 디기 주비야야 모아자반자데 체도자와 샘전 탐지기는 사 모아제 은 톱자 은 탈바다 동화 탐지에단 제비게 탈베고바 탈바 탐지케고 고토비야야 모아자바레시.
So again, the first 2 lines are referring to what virtue is being dedicated. So it's a merit accumulated here in the 7 limb prayer, as well as what one has accumulated previous. So this entirety of merit accumulated thus far in this life. This is what is to be dedicated. Through all that I have done, may this virtue thus accumulated. And then what it is dedicated to, it's very explicit that it's not just for me, but it's me as well as each and every sentient being. So the 3rd line in the Tibetan, it's been dedicated to each and every sentient being. So of course oneself, but each and every single suffering being across the 3 realms. And then for what? The 4th, so that's to whom the merit is dedicated to all sentient beings. And for what? The 4th line, so that it may eradicate all suffering and misery. And the eradication of all suffering and misery is attained when liberation from suffering is attained, or when liberation is attained. So the merit that one has accumulated thus far is being dedicated so that each and every sentient being can attain the lasting happiness of liberation, a happiness that is not punctuated by even a moment of suffering, but where one has attained complete freedom from suffering.
Adelia bene didar dagi indice de gewang gi sabasi de gewang obo ta je gewang sapa gansa rangse gewang obo di chagyurba gansa che ta de ne ngoi gewadi ne gewadi sosu gi sape gewadi che ta ngobo gansa ngoi je gang gewadi che chedo jo su chi dong wa ze semja tamje chedo wa le semja tamje ba de ne 가르롱어 와래라서는 샘제 탐지게 동화 탐지 센에 탈바다 탐지 캠프고 와래 양모 와래서 난도나라 지금 모유다 모위게 체도자와 샘제 당모위 제 개와 모바 강사 디지구 차산 돈비톤에 어두시는 순고래 뭐 ngōbo kāsā, kiawa sākhañ kāsā sīgurwa, dāgi kiawa sākhañ sūsūki ngōgurwa, chīsa ngōbo kāsā dīgirwa, kiawa sākhañ khurāngi sāchī ngōbo kāsā sī, dāgi sīdi ngōbo kāsā dīchī. Tā dīdi kāngwaya iki dzē dīgārsān sākpe kiawa dīchī. Then Semjan Tamje, Semjan Tamje, Sidu, Chedo Java, Semjan Tamji Dunda, Sulkawalungu was Tarba Dunga Tamji, the Sene, Tarba Tamji Kimbo,
So the first line, through all that I have done. So this then shows one's own role in this. So whose merit is being dedicated? Mine. So that's the meaning of the first line. My merit that I have accumulated. And then over what period is the second line, this virtue thus accumulated, referring to what's once accumulated both now and in the past. So again, the first line is whose merit, oneself, and the second line refers to the period of time, this entirety of this life thus far. The third line is to whom, or for whose benefit rather, and that's of each and every sentient being. Myself and all other suffering beings are dedicated for our sake. And to what ends? That's the fourth line, that one may attain liberation, or literally eradicate all suffering and misery. So to gain liberation from all suffering and misery.
Nigi, Dusmore, said Angwadi, Jitani. I don't know that Angarajugi, Delingi, Lopsendi, Angarajugi, Yamlin Chevalla, and the Garaku wars in a Tangaze, Angel Island, that Choji Java said that Java, so good in the Longo, so sure, Sabi Mebache, Dene Sanji Kuson Tusum, and then they gave change, tell a day, but say to do, Cheche, and then Semjan Tamji Dundalia, and the Semjan Tamji. Dunga Drogo, the Chazan Droalia, Drodam machine by Yam, Chiche machine by Deja, Design in Zangazo, San Yi Chin, Yam Chevala Dene, and the Jigge, Koyu Dunga de Drogo to us, the Inzan San Yi Anzulia, and the Tarpa Tamji Kimbo to Lam Tempe, and Yamli Rimbache, Son Roche, Sachi, Dusin was Jugues, and Bedusin, Mebache, Sosugi, Duce Demba Deadice, then Shusane, and Digelia. And then Sanji Sumbadia, there, Sarji, the logic that the Nichiven, Sanji Pedrovina, Yanja Sumhayoma, Semjan Tamji, Sanji Koma, Tarpa Tamji Koma, Toptuyama, the new Mongola Yoris, the Ninza, and the Sanji, the Nigi, Ya, Queen number Diego Combo Mashevache, and Ya, Semjan Tamje, and San Mayi Bado, Tarpa Tamji, Koma, Motobi Bado, Sanji Shuche, Ya, and Shuroches, Shuning on the Chu, Dag, Yamlin, because I chew Ding on Julia, Yamlin Jag, Simjan Sanjuko, to be Chirdu, Yako, Kohon, Jawa Chene, Dushin, Gawatami of Shurochi, said Dushin, and the Musu Shugus and Bism Chene, Dushin, Shuyat, Je, and this Jelia, and Nazu Kawasachi, but Kawasabata, Denigi. Niemana Sashi Kawaka, but that Tamje, Simjan Tamje, Dunga Tata Literature, Sanji Kuban to be Guru Show, said, and Moajai, Moaja de Chagua, the nigger some Davenda, and Jugeda, Yala Dumbigi, Nadeda, and Chasachi Trova, the Dibato. That you want Machidanida, that you Moaja, you are that in the Moaji, that the Chidan Moaji, that in my auntie, Kabar, Nebi, no Moaja, Yanchi. So this
verse then, the seventh verse was a general dedication. So to summarize then the three verses we've looked at tonight, one first imagines or reminds oneself that one is surrounded by Buddhas. All the Buddhas throughout all directions are with their omniscience aware of one, and thereby one uses that, the reminder of their omniscient consciousness, to remind oneself of all their incredible qualities, such as their omniscience, their loving kindness, their wisdom, and so forth, as well as their qualities of body and speech. And then with the faith that results from that recollection, then one also recalls one's own state, so vastly different from that of a Buddha, and how oneself and all other ordinary suffering beings are blind and lost in the darkness of ignorance. And therefore now, one, with that being reminded of the state of suffering beings, one requests all the Buddhas, please teach us, guide us how to attain a path, and continue to guide all of us without exception to cultivate the first path, the second, and so forth, stay with us, guiding us in the cultivation of paths within, until each and every one of us attains liberation from suffering. Even though this will take eons, please continue to be with us, guiding us. Then we looked at the general dedication verse, which is addressed to each and every sentient being, ourselves and all others, to be freed from all forms of suffering. And being freed from all forms of suffering means that you're dedicating that may all beings attain the lasting happiness of enlightenment. So this then in brief is what we've looked at. Next week we'll start with the 8th verse, which is a section, an outline where one starts to look at specific dedications, whereas tonight it was a general dedication. Okay, thank you very much.